right, let's start with Coach Alex. First of all, thank you very much for being a part of the G-Spodcast, and I will start from with the questions from a personal nature.
Mm.
Recently, I became a father, like 4 weeks ago. Uh,
Whoa, congratulations, man.
thank you very much. And I gotta tell you, the cortisol, you can smell it in the air. I mean, you can smell it like the stress with my wife yelling, with me crying in the bathroom sometimes.
That's true story, man.
I know you talk a lot about parenthood, and
Mm.
how do you find time to train? How do you find time to put your life in order and just to make some sense of it? Because everything is, I feel super disorganized at the moment. I feel super not in the right
Yeah.
place.
This is your
It
first
is.
child,
It is.
correct?
Yeah.
And do you have a boy or a
It's a
girl?
girl.
Girl, sweet. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. Yeah, it's a tough question. It's a very tough question. In fact, I didn't actually struggle with my personal health and fitness until I became a father as well. I had struggles, but making it a part of my life on a consistent basis was not difficult for me until I became a father. And I have a distinct memory of my son. He was 6 weeks old at the time. He was laying on the couch, and my wife had gone to take a nap because, as you know, you're not sleeping very good
No,
right
yeah.
now, and so wherever you can get your sleep, you gotta get it. And so I was taking one for the team, man. Even though I hadn't slept for a long time, I was letting her get a nap. And so he's laying on the couch, and I'm like, man, I haven't worked out. I I was a trainer. I was actively training people in the gym every day, at least 5 to 6 days a week, and I wasn't really exercising. And so he's laying on the couch and he's asleep. And so I've got two dumbbells, and so I just start doing exercises. You know, I'm doing push-ups and I'm doing like whatever you can do with two dumbbells in a living room, right? And I get about 12 minutes in and I'm smoked. I haven't been eating right. I haven't been sleeping well. And he wakes up and starts crying, so I got to put my dumbbells down and pick him up and, get a bottle of breast milk and stuff. But young parenthood is like that. Like that that 12 minutes matters. That 12 minutes can do good things for your testosterone. That 12 minutes can do good things for your muscles and for your cardiovascular system. That 12 minutes can do amazing things for your cognition and your mental health. And so what I would say to you as a brand new dad is your exercise and nutrition is wrapped up in your identity of father. What kind of father do you want to be? And when you got I call it the crying hamster stage. That's not very nice to babies, but that's what it is. They just cry a lot, you know? They- when you're in the crying hamster stage, it's not apparent to you that you're starting to build rhythms into your parenthood and your fatherhood right now. But even that small window of doing some push ups or doing some squats or doing some jumping jacks or taking the baby on a walk, right? Or lifting him in the air when he can support himself. Is it a he or a she? You said little
She,
girl.
Sophia. Yeah.
Lifting her. Yeah, lifting your little girl in the air when she can support herself. Getting those things in is actually the foundation for creating an active fatherhood lifestyle. And don't worry, the tumult won't last forever, man. Hang in there.
Yeah, I'm trying to cherish every moment. And I know that we have that discussion with my wife. I mean, um, we don't have a lot of help because we're both from foreign countries, living in UK. No grandmother, no
Hmm.
grandfather at the moment helping us. But she was telling me like, cherish this moment. You need to enjoy because it's not gonna happen again, and so on. But as long as the training, because you said like, use those 15 minutes, use those 10 minutes that you have, it's hard for me to release my mind and to be totally calm and collected when I'm expecting that cry and when I'm expecting something to happen and to break it. And I have OCD, a terrible OCD, man. I mean, when I'm watching a movie,
Mm.
if it's the 33rd minute of the movie, I don't go to pee, I go to the 40th minute. This is who I am. It's terrible, I know.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So it's hard for me to have that peace of mind to find those 15 minutes, knowing that I can break that cycle, that routine, that I can break that push up on the ninth instead of the 10th. And yeah.
Hmm.
Now, do you deal with people with OCD, by the way, and people who are, uh,
Hmm.
yeah. who have that kind of issue.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, in exercise science, exercise is a positive therapeutic benefit to just about every mental health issue that we have a name for. So whether it's OCD, ADHD, anxiety, depression, even neurocognitive dysfunction like Alzheimer's, any of those individuals will benefit from exercise, and I find myself working with them frequently.
All right. So let me ask you this: what is the difference between? Because I've listened to some of your other appearances in other podcasts. What is the difference between? You make a very clear distinction between physical science and marketing science as the fitness goals and workout goals. Where is the distinction there, and what should be aware of?
Yeah, it's important to understand that in the world we live in today, the fitness industry is a for-profit, unregulated market. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but what it means is whatever sells sticks around, which isn't necessarily the same thing as saying whatever sells works, right?
Yeah,
And so
definitely.
when we understand this, when we start looking at the the science of exercise or the science of nutrition, we actually find things that we might wonder, like, why is nobody talking about this? Why is nobody doing this? Why is this not common knowledge? And the reality is the fitness industry is not necessarily interested in what works, it's interested in what sells. And those are not always the same thing, unfortunately. So I'll give you an example. We've known for a very long time that the supplement creatine monohydrate is extremely powerful for building muscle. Like, we've known that. It's actually the most well-studied supplement in the whole
I
world.
used to take it
So
when I was a teenager, which is not a good idea, I suppose. But
it's not the worst thing. In fact, the British Journal of Medicine showed us that 5 grams of creatine per day for 2 years, unless you have a contraindication like kidney failure or liver disease, that's totally safe. That there's no side effects associated in a negative vein with that. But creatine's very cheap to make. Like, it's not a very expensive supplement. It's actually relatively inexpensive to create creatine monohydrate. And so there are several offshoots, and this is going to get me into some trouble with some people. There's several offshoots of creatine supplementation that are different versions of creatine, and they've added all kinds of stuff to it to make it more effective and all this stuff, and it's just not. Like, when you actually look at the research, there's not a difference between taking creatine monohydrate for cognitive benefit, for musculoskeletal benefit. Actually helps with sleep deprivation, by the way. Pro tip, Dad. with my child number 2, creatine monohydrate was a really helpful part of getting through that without feeling subhuman on a regular basis. So creatine monohydrate is perfectly fine as a supplement. You don't need to add all the bells and whistles to it, but there's an entire market of extraneous creatine monohydrate supplements, and maybe they taste good, maybe they got caffeine in them and make people feel good, but as far as the actual benefit of creatine monohydrate, they're not getting any better benefits when you look at the actual research. And that's how so many things in the fitness world operate. Another example would be fasting. It's free to fast, right? You don't have to eat anything.
it's cheap. Yeah.
That's what fasting actually means. But there's an entire multi-million-dollar industry around fasting shakes. So if I fast, but I have this shake I'm taking, I mean, technically you're not even fasting at that point, but it's marketed as a resource for people who are interested in fasting. And so the fitness industry is not interested necessarily in what actually works. It's what sells that sticks around, and people should know that.
What is the biggest misconception about mm, um, some nutrition? They don't have actually nutritional value, but a lot of people market it like they do, and they market it like it's good for you. I remember in the 60s, okay, I don't remember in the 60s, but I do know that they were trying to market the cigarettes is something good for you, and you can smoke in a hospital, in a plane. Um, what are the biggest misconceptions in your opinion about the products we have out there?
Yeah, man, the nutrition world in general is full of misconceptions, and it's unfortunately nutrition takes on kind of like a religious
Yeah.
way about it, because I mean we eat every day, multiple times a day, if you're privileged to do so, right? And so there's a very deep visceral connection to what we eat, how it tastes, even the vibe of the way you do things at your house, man. You really want to start a fight with your wife, try to deal with your nutrition right now while you're while you're also juggling babies. You're like, we shouldn't buy that. That's not organic. We should buy that. Like, whoa, man, watch out. And so, unfortunately, in the fitness world, the misconceptions around nutrition become their own kind of religious idols. Like, this is the hill I'm willing to die on.
Yeah.
And one that just won't go away right now is this infatuation with calories with regard to health and fitness. So calories, calorie
Mm-hmm.
counting, cutting calories, saving calories, being in a calorie deficit, being in a calorie surplus. This way of thinking about nutrition came out of the bodybuilding community, because I'm going to grow muscle. How am I going to grow muscle? Well, I'm going to be in a surplus of calories. Okay, because obviously if I don't eat enough, I can't grow muscle. Okay, and then I have to get ready for my show. I've got to stand on stage, and the judges have to see all this muscle that I've got on my body, and so I have to decrease my body fat as far as I can in order to show my work, right? And that's a sport. That's a thing people do for giggles and even professionally, right? And so great. And we've taken that way of doing nutrition and we have put that on the general population. And unfortunately, calories are a piece of nutrition, but they're not the only piece of nutrition. If calories were the only piece of nutrition that mattered, your body would be like a car.
Yeah.
You put fuel
Sure.
in, you get from point A to point B, we're good to go. But your body's not like a car. Your body's a living organism that builds itself out of the fuel that you consume. So there's energy in your food for sure, but there's also nutrients. There's also messengers for your genetics that tell your body about how to adapt. There's also polyphenols and antioxidants and stuff we don't even understand how it works yet that exist in our food. And so I work with people on a regular basis, both elite operators and just the general population, who say, I want to get healthier, or I want to get faster, or I want to get stronger, or I want to lose body fat. And because of the fitness industry, they're so focused on their caloric intake that we're missing basic nutrients on a regular basis. And they're fascinated when we're like, we just shift the way we eat more nutrients, and all of a sudden so many things get better. And they're like, oh, I didn't even change anything about my calories. Well, you did. You changed how many nutrients were inherent in the energy. And so that's one giant misconception that it's been around for probably 50 years at this point and really just needs to die. We need a much deeper understanding of what our food actually is beyond calories.
Definitely true. When you talked about bodybuilding, I remember a time when everybody wanted to be that was the perfect image for a body. That was the ideal, like the Arnold Schwarzeneggers from the Predator movie, and most people don't want that kind of a body in today's world. I think that kind of a generation,
Mm.
that Gen Z generation, maybe we shift our focus from watching those fighters fighting UFC or MMA, and we decided, okay, like this is the body that we want. This is the perfect body for plyometric exercises. Like I want to be able to do that in order to get in shape.
Hmm.
While you're a bodybuilder, I mean, I don't know if bodybuilders do cardio at all. Definitely, you know better than me, but it's like ideal of a perfect body change through the years too. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, and think, once upon a time, the idea, it's vanity is what it really
Yeah.
is. I want to look like that, and unfortunately, that took root, and still not quite out of the system yet. And this is extremely important in my area of research, which is with regard to how belief impacts our physiology. And what we're starting to learn is that's an empty way to understand our health and fitness. It's much more powerful to start thinking about what are the identities in my life that really matter to me, and how does my health and fitness serve that, right? So you're a father now. It's a new identity. It's new to you. It's hard on a dad. You know, mom gets all the oxytocin when the baby's born, and she's instantly mom. All those switches flip on in her head. Dad takes time.
I know. I know.
It's a months-long process before you're like, I'm dad, and it's awesome. So hang in there, buddy. I think my son was about 8 months old before I was like, I really like being a dad. This is pretty cool. So hang in there.
I'll
It gets
have
better.
to wait here. A stupid question, by the way, but nevertheless, I'm going to ask it because, like they say in school, there's no stupid questions, right? Is six pack a good thing? Like, is it healthy to have a six pack? And is it can you sustain that for, let's say, a year?
Yeah, fair question. I'm about to answer this in general, but I've had a six pack since I was like, I don't know, 9, and I'm doing fine. So
Since
it's not
9?
unhealthy. Since I was 9,
Wow.
yeah. My little, I've got a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they're both jacked. And it's not. It's fun fact. It's from tickling. Tickle them, throw them
Wow.
around, ride them on the shoulders. They just build all that core musculature and stuff. They don't do crunches. They don't lift weights. Like they just exist that way, right? But a six pack isn't necessarily an unhealthy thing. But it does have a lot to do with how you're built and your genetic heritage. If you're a thicker person, like if you generally carry slightly more body fat than average, which is a genetic thing, you can have slightly, and it's not bad. It's not unhealthy to have a 16, 18% body fat. It's actually pretty healthy for a man, right? But if that's your genetic heritage, then you could have a six pack if you would cut some fat. But is that sustainable and healthy for you? That's suspect, right? Because if you have to cut a bunch of your essential fats to get there, if you have to eat in a deficit all the time to get there, if you're exercising 2 hours a day to get there, and that's just not good for your family life and not good for your work life, then that would be a negative thing, right? What I say to people in general is if we can get your body, your exercise, your nutrition, your rest, if we can get those all lined up, we'll create the best optimal body composition for you. And for the average guy, that's somewhere between 12 and 16% body fat.
Yeah.
And they could train really hard athletically and have more time and energy to train hard athletically and might have slightly less body fat than that on average. Or they might have slightly more body fat than that on average, and that can be healthy for them. But maintaining 5, 6, 7% body fat all the time, for most people, that's not healthy.
It's draining, yeah.
That's very draining. Yes, so something breaks down over time for sure.
We all love gladiators. Do you love gladiators? Have you seen Spartacus?
Yeah.
The image that we have of modern gladiators is very different from how they looked back in the days in ancient Rome. They actually had body fat. They had like significant. I'm a historian, so they had a significant body fat just to preserve their vital organs from a strike from a knife or a gladius or a spear or
Absolutely.
something like
Yep.
that. And we tend to forget that having a six pack doesn't make you a UFC champion.
Right.
You talk about also, and we kind of discussed that and touched on this about bio individuality. You wanna talk about more why everybody is different, why we have to take that into consideration, and we
Yeah,
should treat
absolutely.
it.
It's actually part of your question there about the six pack,
Yeah.
right? So bioindividuality is the idea that we have a lot of genetics that are equivalent. So you and I are both Homo sapien, right? So we're both male Homo sapiens. We both actually have similar color hair, and we have similar color skin.
Yeah.
So, but if you boil it down to the places where we're different, because we definitely don't look the same, we don't have the same fingerprints, it's very likely that you have several pieces of your genetic heritage that are very different from my genetic heritage, that are part of that 0.1% or even 0.05% that we're different. And those differences matter. Those differences can change the way we process certain nutrients. Those differences could change the way that our muscles adapt or don't adapt to exercise. It could also change our predisposition to enjoy exercise. There are some people who genetically just hate working hard. It's not fun.
I will give you an example that just came to my mind about fast twitching muscles. Not everybody have fast twitching muscles. Some people are just born with it.
Not much of them, yeah.
And I always wondered why some people who are great at, again, I'll go to the fighting here, but great at jiu-jitsu cannot do much about boxing even if they train for 10 years, because the fast twitching muscle is something that you're born with. Am I correct?
It's actually, it's not necessarily that you're born with the fast twitch muscle. Every person has a unique genetic blueprint, your DNA, right? And that's given to you at conception. So your wife and you made your baby, right? And what's cool is if you guys had more babies, which don't think about that right now, one's plenty. But if you guys had more babies, they wouldn't have the same genetic heritage. Two same parents, but they would still have differences between the two of them that were significant, right? And so your genetic blueprint informs your body how to build itself. Kind of like if you're, I don't know, building a bookshelf from the store. It comes with a set of instructions, right? Put this plank here, put this one here, right? If you bought the bookshelf with the cover, you got a cover too. Some of us have the genetic predisposition to have lots of type 2 muscle fibers.
Okay.
And some of us have the genetic predisposition in the blueprint that say we're not going to have very many of those, right? We're going to have muscle, but most of that muscle will be type 1 versus type 2. And there is a genetic difference there. And we can see that in world-class Olympians who hold records for powerlifting.
Like Carlos Nassar.
Clean and
I don't know
jerk.
if you know him.
Yeah.
Carlos Nassar, he's the world champion at the moment in the world. He breaks all the world records. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what we're looking at is we'll take somebody like that and we'll look at their genetic profile and say, okay, because the human genome is vast. There's so many alleles in the human genome. We look at it and go, okay, what's common between him and the other world-class Olympic powerlifters? And then we can really boil down just a couple things that are unique and special about them, and we can group these things together and say, wow, that seems to code for type 2 muscle fibers. Let's look at how that shows up in the general population. And you can actually see that. There's, I don't have it actually. I don't have the athletic gene that makes me very explosive, which is very painful and frustrating sometimes when I would love to be really strong, right? My wife, on the other hand, has the gene. So that's a joke in our house that she's the athletic one and I actually just have to train all the time. Right. But that's important to understand. There's also a gene that controls for how much amylase is in your saliva. Amylase is the enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates starting in the mouth. So when you chew, right? So there are some people who have the genetic predisposition to have 4 times the amount of amylase in their saliva.
Wow.
And what that means is they break down carbohydrates very rapidly, right? Like that's crazy. What that means for them is their blood sugar is fundamentally different in response to, let's say, a slice of pizza than somebody who has the genes to produce less amylase, where the slice of pizza will make it all the way to the stomach and have to work through some hydrochloric acid before it starts to break down rapidly, right? And so in one person, their responsiveness to carbohydrates, especially in our world with lots of processed carbs around, is actually really hard on them. Whereas today's world of abundant processed carbohydrates is not very hard on those without the gene to break down carbohydrates as rapidly. It doesn't create as much stress in the system. And so in this way, bioindividuality is becoming more and more important for us to understand, because what's right for my body, what gets the most out of me, exercise, nutrition, sleep-wise, might be different from you. And that's really important in the nutrition world.
So we're not really equal, are we? We're all born with different traits, different genetics. Oh, you went through a genetic disorder called I can't. It's called EDS if I'm not mistaken, right? Eller,
Yeah, Ehlers-Danlos is what I say, although there's a couple different ways others have pronounced it.
yeah. Can you tell me more about the struggle with it and how your professional part is quite interesting. You wanted to become an orthopedic surgeon, and what's EDS and how did you conquer that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's still a thing I'm wrestling with every day. So I don't want to claim conquering it yet, although I have made some significant strides toward that. And I say that specifically because anybody who wrestles with anything chronic, you with OCD, you have probably made some significant strides in living with it well. But the idea of like conquering and eliminating is like, oh, I don't know, man. Does that feel right to you?
I didn't know I have it. Like, I think my wife told me like you probably have OCD, and I said like maybe you're right. I thought everybody's like that. It was a revelation to me. So yeah, but you're right. Yeah.
So with Ehlers-Danlos, Ehlers-Danlos is a genetic disorder that changes the way my body synthesizes collagen. And there's a small portion of the population for whom this is true. And there's different types of Ehlers-Danlos for the different tissues in the body that it affects. For me, the tissues that it affects are the connective tissues, my tendons, my ligaments. It also affects my digestive tract and my skin, right? For some individuals, it's the cardiac tissue that it affects most, and so that carries with it a whole host of other issues. But that said, I didn't know I had Ehlers-Danlos until my late 20s when my mom was diagnosed, and about the same time I was wrestling with some things that brought me symptomatically under that same diagnosis. But really, what the struggle looked like for me in my life was doing the same things that exercise science says I should do athletically and getting drastically different results from my peers. Getting injured on a regular basis, not being able to progress in the same ways, and wrestling with a lot of pain. So I love being active, and I'm particularly, I'd say, stubborn and hard-headed would be the negative version, but maybe you could say I'm gritty. I'm not sure. Either way. Oh, it hurts? That's fine. I'll keep running, you know? And with Ehlers-Danlos, learning the limits of my body was a very hard thing for me to learn. Learning when strain was good, but pain was bad, and when to push the envelope there. And so fast forwarding, to post-diagnosis, understanding, hey, my body is fundamentally different. And so I shouldn't expect it to respond and react the way, let's say, my clients have,
Yeah.
or the way that people without this disorder respond, and learning how to treat myself like an outlier, how to feed myself well, how to exercise well, how to recover well. It's been an extremely useful part of my work to help individuals learn how to feed themselves well. Not everybody's an outlier in the same way, but we all definitely have our very unique makeup, and it's a journey to learn how to make the most of it.
Um, you also work with um, Navy SEAL CAA operators, a lot of people who are putting their life on the line in the army, in the police force. Is it what's the difference between treating a person with chronic pain or treating a person who wants to get in shape then and then you're going to treat like help with advice or a workout schedule for somebody who is a Navy SEAL, let's say, or Delta Force operator?
In many ways, they're the same because we're all human. But an operator has a fundamentally different mindset. So somebody in the general population who's just trying to get healthier or reduce pain or be a good grandmother. I just had a client here in my studio who her primary goal was to keep up with her grandkids and to take good care of her body to do that, despite the injuries and past history of ailments that she's wrestled with, right? And so the major difference between those two, if we're going to draw a distinction, is that an operator has a mission mindset. They understand that I am training for the mission, I'm on mission, or I'm recovering from the mission. They understand that. Whereas in the general population, there's not really an understanding of those kind of seasons of training, those seasons of preparation or mission mindedness and recovery. Most of the people that I work with in the general population, those are kind of all just wrapped up in living. Same stuff, different day.
So
Is what they would
those
say
people
around
come to
here.
you already with a mental discipline in their head. They come with,
That's exactly
yeah.
right. Yes. And an operator, if I say, hey, I need you to do this, they go, okay, yes, sir. They might have some questions, but they're ready to go. In the general population, if I say, hey, here's your program, let's do this, they might not do any of it this week at all. And they'll say, well, I just didn't have time. And like an operator doesn't say that, because the mission is the mission. I'm preparing for the mission, I'm on mission, or I'm recovering from the mission. Whereas in the general population, it's like, what mission? To get six pack? That's not very motivating.
Um, I wanted to talk about also about motivation. How do you find motivation in to go every day to the gym, or maybe not every day, maybe every other day?
Mm.
I used to train 5 days a week. I will go to Muay Thai workout at 5 back in Sofia in my home country, and then at 7 there was Jiu-Jitsu, and then I do that, and I was like, after 3 or 4 days, I thought like, okay, maybe I need a rest and a back rub.
Rest in a back row, no joke, man.
And it's hard for me. Like dedication and consistency is quite important, and it's for me at least. It's very hard to build that in the long term. While passion and let's go to the gym now and we're gonna hit the gym with all we can and it's more easy to do like short term goals. I can survive a week like intensive, very intensive training of a week, but doing that for a year or doing this for a longer period and having the motivation, the work ethic to go every day to the gym, it's hard. Where do you
Mm.
find strength to do that?
There's a number of answers here, but as you were talking, it's going to sound morbid, but it really has to come down to this. If today was your last day, would you do it? Yes or no? And for me, and what I work to help build into my clients is to understand that their fitness pursuit isn't a vanity thing. Like if this was your last day, would you still go for a
Yeah.
run? I would. Now that might not make any sense to you, or it might not make any sense to somebody who's listening. That's like stupid. That why would you go for a run on your last day?
I
And
wouldn't.
for me, it's part of for for me it's part of my
Yeah.
identity. For me, it's part of what I do in my life. It's part of how I take care of myself. It's part of how I live out what I believe. It's part of how I spend enjoyable time by myself
Yeah.
and appreciate nature. And it's part of how I take care of my mindset so that when I am around the people that I love and I am spending time with clients and other individuals, that I can be my best self. And so I would. And most people who struggle with motivation would say that's crazy. Like I don't understand that mindset. And so what I would say is when you build nutrition and exercise into your identity, you have to do it little pieces at a time. You're not going to become a weird freak
Small changes.
fitness
Yeah.
person overnight. But when you understand what place that has in the wider world of the best version of you, when you understand that, then it's not really about motivation so much as it is about just who you are on a regular basis. So I would say that finding motivation is important, but expecting to be motivated all the time to get done what's important to you is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'll relate it to being a dad. So you got a little baby, right? And sometimes you're holding her and you're like, wow, you're so beautiful. I can't believe that we made you. Like, you're mine. Like, oh my gosh, I love you. You're so cool. I can't wait for you to grow up and for me to teach you all the things that I want to teach you, right? And sometimes that little punk is crying in your face and you're like, shut up. Like, wait. But, and don't, like, that doesn't fix it. But, but, but you are motivated to be a good father when everything's good. But identity of good father doesn't mean it's always going to feel good. When your baby's crying, you're going to change her diaper, you're going to feed her, you're going to try to show her things and comfort her. You're going to give her to mom because maybe mom's just better at it. And that's not a motivation thing. It doesn't always feel good to be a dad, but it's important to be a good dad. And so in the same way, from an exercise and nutrition perspective, it's not always going to feel good. It's not always going to be something you're all jazzed up to do. But if in your life it's the right thing for you to be up to, you're going to do it whether you feel motivated or not.
Jace, how long are we talking? Oh, we still have time. I know that you're Christian, right? And you take inspiration from your faith. How does that help you? Transpond that or transcend that into the your workout regime, to taking care of your body and so on. Isn't that vanity if you're reading the Bible and like in Christianity everything is about the soul and very little about the body, which is kind of like a shell, a sinful shell even.
It's a fair question. Actually, there's a number of things we can say about this. First, I was so fascinated with this. I wasn't a Christian originally. I was actually an atheist for most of my young adulthood, and so in coming to Christianity, it was important for me to wrestle through why would I spend time and energy exercising anyway, right? So that whole process actually led me to write a devotional. So I've written a 40-day devotional to help people work through this as well, on meditations that have come about in the last decade of my life on this subject. But you said something there I think is important, and I'm not a theologian, so I might mess this up a little bit, but from a faith perspective, this idea that the spirit and the body are separate is not actually a Christian idea. There's actually a whole line of thinking called Gnosticism that started around the 200 or 300 AD, which as a historian you'll appreciate.
I actually gonna tell you a little secret. I believe myself I consider myself agnostic. And I know a lot about
not
Gnosticism.
agnostic.
Not agnostic,
Not
agnostic. Gnosis, which is knowledge.
agnostic.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay, gotcha. And okay, so this was a thing that Christianity had to wrestle with in 200 and 300 AD. And that was the idea that the body and the soul were separate. And
the divine spark.
we actually, yeah, right. And so in Christianity, this was put to rest then, but it's actually come back. It's come back in a way that people don't really know how to articulate this, but they are one. And in the Christian world, it was an important thing because the question was Jesus God? And if he was he just a body with a spirit? Was he body and spirit? Was he 100% man and 100% God, right? And so to separate the two would actually be making Jesus something less than he actually was, which was God and man, or at least in my belief, that's what the Bible teaches us, right? And so that said, what I've learned in my faith, and it didn't start with this, I had to make a decision with my disease, whether it was better to keep on living or to go ahead and die. That's really what I had to decide, because it was painful and difficult and depressing. And when you wrestle with things like that, eventually you come to the end of your rope. And so I had to decide, do I want to live, or would it be better not to? And it was coming to terms with that really taught me that faith had a place in my life, and it was very important because I wouldn't be here without it.
Yeah,
And so in working that out, to your point, if the body and soul are separate things, then exercise is a waste of my time because I got other more spiritual things to do. Why do I need biceps? and in Christianity, and that's real. That's real. And in Christianity, our understanding of the body is very elementary.
It
The
is,
church
yeah.
at large, I would say, has a very shallow understanding of the body and has let that vanity of influence in culture influence it. But what I would challenge that with is there are sins in fitness. If you'll pardon the faith word, sin just means things you do wrong that have ultimate consequences. There are sins in fitness. On one end of the spectrum is gluttony and sloth. Gluttony is I eat for my own pleasure. I'm never satisfied. I'm always trying to take something in to make me feel good, right? You have a little baby right now. Sometimes the only way to get her to stop crying is to feed her something. It's built right
The
into
only
us,
way,
right?
yeah.
The only way. But as an adult, that's a terrible way to handle your emotions. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm mad. I should eat pizza. Like that's a terrible way to handle your emotions. That's not very mature at all, right? And so that's gluttony. And then sloth is I desire comfort. I'm unwilling to go be uncomfortable, which is a sin because how are you going to learn? How are you going to grow? Like to do a podcast. I'm sure your first podcast was terrible. Mine was too. So how am I ever going to
It was
become a
pretty okay,
podcaster if I'm
actually.
not willing? It was pretty okay. Oh, well, that's nice of you. That's wait. We'll talk about pride in a second. I'm just kidding. So there's gluttony and sloth on one end, right? And those, in my mind, those are sins of fitness. Those are things that keep us from making the most out of the body we have. And on the other end of the spectrum are the other extremes. This is pride and envy. This is looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger and going, I need to have that body. Like that's the envy part,
Yeah.
right? Or pride. I want to look good naked, because that would make me way more confident all the time about everything, right? And that's pride too. These are vanity. These are things that'll pass away. I mean, one day your body will be food for worms, right? So these things don't have an ultimate purpose. But in the middle of that road is stewardship. It's the attitude of saying, God's given me this body. It's the only one I got. And I would like to make the most out of it. That would be faithful to Him. That would be faithful to my family. And someday I might need to use it for stuff that if I didn't take care of it, I can't use it for those things. And that's on me. So that's stewardship. Stewardship is what removes vanity from fitness. And for me, that was something I had to come to in my life. And that was something that kept me from going down a path in my heart and my mind where I'd much rather just not be here to deal with the difficulty.
You made the correct choice. You're here. We're doing this podcast. Otherwise, we're not going to be here. But Coach Alex VanHouten, thank you very much for being a part of this podcast. It was a pleasure. We laughed. We were serious. We talked about different subjects. We talked about religion, and I hope I see you again. Let's do this again sometimes.
Same. Would love it, man. Appreciate your time and keep up the good work as a dad. It's not easy,
Cheers.
but it's worth it.
Cheers.